Assalamu alaikum all of you. Our today's topic is from paper 2, the pillars of Islam, and today we are going to discuss the method of Eid prayer because sometimes this question could come in your exam that describe how and why Muslims they celebrate Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Okay, they may ask you to write about how do the two Eids bring Muslim community together, and in the same way why are Muslims encouraged to pay Zakatul Fitr during Eid al Fitr? Or there could be a question about that how describe how and when the two Eids are celebrated and give an account of the Eid prayer. Okay, give an account of the Eid prayer. So Eid prayer is also the part of our syllabus that we are going to discuss. So Eid prayers are also congregational prayers. Okay, in this we have to write the answer for the Eid prayer in the same way that we had discussed the method of Friday prayer. So what would be the outline for writing the answer for the Eid prayer? Okay, you may start your answer by first describing that what are the two Eids that are celebrated. Okay, there are two Eids celebrated by the Muslims. Okay, first is Eid al-Fitr and second is Eid al-Adha. So Muslims around the world they celebrate two festivals. There are two festivals. There are two Eids which are celebrated by the Muslims every year. Each year there are two festivals of the Muslims. First is called Eid al-Fitr. Second is called Eid al-Adha. Okay, both are the event of happiness, celebration, and joy for the Muslims. Eid al-Fitr is celebrated on the first of Shawwal. Okay, it's celebrated at the end of the month of Ramzan. Ramzan is the ninth month of the Hijri calendar, Muslim calendar, and Shawwal is the 10th month. So we can say that it is celebrated on the first day of the month of Shawwal, which is the 10th month of the Islamic calendar. And the second Eid is celebrated, which is called Eid al-Adha. And Eid al-Adha is celebrated at the on 10th of Zilhajj on the completion of Hajj, which is the 12th month of the Islamic calendar. Okay, this is a brief introduction and why it is celebrated. Eid al-Fitr is celebrated at the end, spending the blessed month of Ramzan successfully to celebrate and to show your happiness and joy for Allah's blessings and His mercy. And Eid al-Adha is celebrated upon the completion of the one major obligation of the Muslims, which is Hajj. Okay, and it's also celebrated in the remembrance of the sacrifice which has been made by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. So these are the two blessed occasions, and special prayers are offered in congregation. So in order to thank Allah Almighty, in order to show your gratitude to Him, okay, then these special prayers are offered, which are called Eid prayers. Fine. Identify that how do Muslims they prepare for these prayers. Okay. First of all, you can mention that on whom it is obligatory. So Eid prayers, Eid congregational prayers are obligatory and compulsory on every sane adult Muslim. Okay, it is obligatory on adult sane Muslim. And people who are exempted from Friday prayer are also exempted from Eid prayer. Okay, Friday prayer, people are women are exempted, sick, slave, very old people, children, they are exempted. Same way, Eid al-Fitr from Eid prayer, these people are also exempted. In the same way, traveler, captives, slaves, they are exempted from the performance of Eid prayer also. So you must identify that it's obligatory on those Muslims who are adult, who are sane. Okay, so we are talking about the Eid prayer, that how Eid is celebrated and how Eid prayers are performed, whether it is Eid al-Fitr or it is Eid al-Adha. So there are two festivals, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, and we had discussed that Eid al-Fitr is celebrated on the first of Shawwal and Eid al-Adha is celebrated by Muslims on 10th of Zilhajj. Okay, Eid prayers are obligatory on whom? It's obligatory and compulsory on Muslims, adult, sane. So insane or children are exempted from its performance. Okay, in the same way, women, sick, old people are also exempted from its performance. So this is how आपने फिर बताना ये था, आपने ये बताया कि on whom it is obligatory. Then you can identify the timings of the prayer. So timings for these Eid prayers are both same. Okay, it is performed as soon as the sun has completely risen. Okay, after the rising of the sun. So the time of Eid begins with the sunrise and it remains there till before the sun starts to decline. Okay, it remains there till before the sun starts to decline, before the midday. So Eid prayers can be performed between the sunrise and the midday. Fine. But you can mention that Eid al-Adha prayers are performed a little bit earlier as compared to Eid al-Fitr. Eid al-Adha is performed a little bit earlier because Muslims they have to perform sacrifice. Okay, Udhiyah. Sacrifice is to be done and sacrifice, okay, sacrificial animals are to be sacrificed. That is why Eid al-Adha prayers are usually performed immediately after the sunrise so that they can make their sacrifices easily with convenience. While Eid al-Fitr, since they don't have to make any other special things to do, they just have to meet their relatives and share their happiness and greetings. So Eid al-Fitr are usually performed a little bit later after the sunrise. Fine. Okay, describe that how do Muslims they prepare for these prayers. Discuss the Prophet's practice, that how the Prophet peace upon him used to prepare himself for these prayers, that it was his practice to take baths and apply perfume, use the fragrance, using the miswak to clean one's mouth and fragrance to scent himself. In the same way, the person must have a full body wash in the morning to celebrate this Eid. They prefer to wear the new clothes to express their feelings of happiness. They wear the perfume and to spread the happiness. Okay, they also cut their nails, okay, particularly, and cut their hair on before Eid al-Fitr. But in Eid al-Adha, those who are those who have to perform sacrifice, they have to abstain themselves from cutting and trimming of their nails and hair, because those who are performing sacrifice they have to abstain themselves from cutting the nails and trimming the hair till the completion of their sacrifice from 1st Zilhaj till 10th of Zilhaj. Okay, why it is so? Because to resemble themselves with those who are performing Hajj, and it is also, since Prophet peace upon him also did so, in order to follow the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad peace upon him, they usually practice this. So Eid prayers are performed either in the mosque, and it is preferred to perform these prayers in open ground, which are called open ground, open sky. Under the open sky, it is called musalla. Okay, use the word musalla. Okay, instead of using the word Eidgah, okay, better way to call it musalla, the place of prayer. So these open spaces which are reserved for this purpose, okay, open grounds, in open places, in parks. So these prayers are performed in open. So there should be a greater gathering than the Friday gathering. Fine. So this is how these in these places these prayers are performed. So I told you that instead of saying Eidgah, better to say Musalla, which are particularly reserved for the Eid prayer. So people from different adjoining areas they are to perform and gather at one place, so there would be a greater gathering. Okay, mention that it was the Prophet's practice that before going for Eid al-Fitr, he would eat some sweet, usually dates, and he would take these dates in odd number. While for Eid al-Adha, it was his practice not to take any meal. Greater gathering to show the unity. Why there should be a greater gathering? So there should be a unity amongst the Muslims, like two or three people of two or three mosques or two or three places, adjoining places, should gather at one greater ground, okay, Eidgah or Musalla, to show their unity and their solidarity with one another. So there should be a greater gathering, so there should be a more blessing, okay, from Allah Almighty. That is why there should be a, so weekly basis gathering is Friday. Yearly basis two gatherings are there, okay, on the community level, which is Eid gathering, and annual gathering of the Muslims on international level, it is Hajj gathering. So Hajj gathering is the largest annual gathering of the Muslims. So Muslims they should show their unity, their solidarity, their strength and power in the form of these gatherings. Okay, it can be performed inside the mosque, but the Prophet's practice and sunnah is to perform these prayers in open. So in case of rain or in case of any such thing that it is not possible to perform it in open, then it may can be performed in the mosque, but better way. And the sunnah of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that you have to identify the Prophet's sunnah and practice also, that it was the Holy Prophet's practice to perform these prayers in open. If it is difficult, then it can be performed in the mosque. Okay, so identify that it was the Prophet's practice कि क्या करते थे जब when he would go for Eid al-Fitr, he would take and he would eat some dates, a sweet thing. Fine. So abstain means to stop themselves. Okay, I told you that in Eid al-Adha, Muslims, particularly those who intend to perform sacrifice, they usually abstain themselves, they do not cut their nails and they do not trim their hair. It is the Prophet's practice. And since people who are performing Hajj, okay, they are in a state of ihram, and while in a state of ihram they do not cut their nails and trim their hair. So in order to resemble themselves with such people who are performing Hajj, okay, and sacrifice there, so it was also the Prophet's practice that he had advised the Muslims to follow this practice of Hujjaj, the pilgrims. That is why those who intend to perform sacrifice, they have to abstain themselves from cutting and trimming the nails and the hair. Fine. Then identify the method of prayer also. We talked about the timings of prayer. Identify the method of prayer, that there is no azan for Eid prayer. Okay, there is no iqamat for the Eid prayer. They gather. Okay, so these are the additional prayers. Eid prayer is not the replacement of any other prayer. Okay, it is not the replacement of any other prayer. So this is an additional prayer. So since it is a prayer which is performed immediately after the sunrise, so Muslims after the Fajr prayer, they do not perform any other prayer, okay, except for the Eid prayer. Okay, so Eid prayers are performed immediately after the sunrise. So Muslims, they gather at an open place, and Imam, the prayer leader, tells them the method of prayer. Okay, usually there is a speech by a prayer leader about to guide them about the importance of this Eid. Okay, so there are two rakat are performed in congregation with six additional takbir. Okay, so two rakat are performed with six additional takbir along with two sermons. Sermon consists of two parts. You have to mention that Eid prayers are wajib. So there is no qaza since it is not the replacement of any other prayer. So there is no qaza for Eid prayer. The one who has missed this, because Eid prayers cannot be performed individually. It must be performed in congregation. So if the person has missed Eid prayer, then he may can join a congregation at another place if it is possible. Otherwise, if he has missed due to some reason, so there is no qaza for it. You have to mention that the person should make, before starting the prayer, they assemble themselves in rows. Gaps are filled up. Okay, they stand shoulder to shoulder, side by side, without leaving any gap between one another. And since there is no azan and no iqamat, mention that they make their intention, they declare their intention that I intend to perform two rakat wajib of Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha, whatever may the case may be. And there are six additional takbir. Okay, and three in the first rakat, three of them are said in the first rakat, first unit. Okay, and the three are said in the second unit, second rakat of the prayer. Okay, the second unit of the prayer. So identify that how the prayers are performed. First there is takbir tahrima, and then they recite sana, tawus and tasmiyah. Fine. Okay, I will explain what is ruku. Okay, ruku is to bend down, keep placing your hands on your knees. This is called ruku. Okay, you know that you people are performing these prayers, so you must know about what is ruku, what is sajda, and fine. So first, the prayers start with takbir tahrima, the first takbir that we recite. Okay, there are six extra takbir. I'm mentioning extra takbir. ठीक है, other than which are usually there in the prayer. तो बाकी तो वैसे ही होती हैं. Additional there are six. Fine. So there is first takbir, which is takbir tahrima. With that we start our prayer. Afterwards we recite sana, then we recite ta'awuz, a'udhu billah, and we recite tasmiyah, bismillah. Okay, and then the three takbirs are recited after sana. Okay, before the recitation of surah fatiha there are three extra takbir. They raise their hand and they lower them down. Then afterward prayer is performed as usual. There is surah fatiha and surah. Okay, it was the prophet's practice to recite suratul ala in the first rakat. Which surah he used to recite? He used to recite surah al ala in the first rakat, and then it was his practice to recite surah al ghashiyah in the second rakat of the prayer, second rakat of the Eid prayer, and also in the Friday prayer. So first rakat is completed as usual, and in the second rakat will start with surah fatiha and surah. But before going to ruku, they will say takbir thrice. These are the three extra takbir. Okay, while saying takbir, they raise their hand up to their ear and they will lower them down. Okay, this is how these Eid prayers are performed. After the prayer, what happens? There is a there are two sermons. Okay, there are two sermons, and these sermons in Eid al-Fitr, Imam usually talks about Sadaqatul Fitr. He talks about the importance of the month of fasting which has passed, and in Eid al-Adha, Imam particularly talks about sacrifice. Okay, Udhiyah, sacrifice. Okay, the sacrifice that has been made by Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son Ismail. Okay, so these are the two sermons. Okay, during the sermon, Imam takes a pause and he sits for a while. So khutbah consists of two parts. Okay, so takbir is not the intention. Takbir is saying Allahu Akbar and raising your hands up to your ears. This is what takbir is called. Fine. I hope it is clear to all of you. So not seven extra takbir. There are six extra takbir. Three in the first rakat and three in the second rakat. Okay. Then you have to mention that after the prayer is over, there are two sermons, two khutbah. Khutbah consists of two parts. Okay, and between these two parts, Imam sits for a while. And in Eid al-Fitr, Imam usually talks about Sadaqatul Fitr. Okay, Sadaqatul Fitr, the charity which is given to the poor people, the needy people, so that they may celebrate the happiness, the joy. Okay, and this charity is also paid during Eid. Okay, there are two major reasons for the payment of Sadaqatul Fitr. The first reason is that so that the poor and the needy people, they also will have something to celebrate. Okay, they will also, we are sharing our happiness and joy with them so that they may have something to celebrate their Eid along with us. The second reason why sadaqah is paid on Eid al-Fitr, because Eid al-Fitr, it comes after the month of Ramzan, and during the month of Ramzan we might have committed many mistakes while observing fast. Okay, there definitely would happen several mistakes during while observing fast. So in order to compensate these mistakes, this sadaqah is usually given to overcome the faults and the mistakes that have been committed by us. So these are the two major reasons why Muslims are encouraged to pay sadaqatul fitr on Eid al-Fitr. Fine. So in Eid al-Fitr, Imam usually talks about sadaqatul fitr. Okay, so Muslims, they have to attend these sermons attentively, quietly, and listen to them, the instructions of Imam. In these khutbah, few verses of the Holy Quran are recited, a hadith of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, are mentioned, and Imam prays for the Imam also prays for the welfare of the Muslim Ummah. Okay, he prays for their guidance, for their welfare. So these sermons are very much important for the Muslims to attend. So both these things are important. At the end of the sermon, they greet one another, they hug one another, and they usually visit their family members. While in Eid al-Adha, after the khutbah, they perform their sacrifice. Okay, they perform sacrifice, they share the meat of their sacrificial animals with their relatives, with the poor people. This is how this these festivals are celebrated by the Muslims all over the world. Okay, so that was about the Eid prayer that we had discussed it in detail in our this class. Okay, again we have some questions related to this topic, like describe how and why Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. We had discussed in detail that Eid al-Fitr takes place on the 1st of Shawwal, while Eid al-Adha takes place on the 10th of Zilhajj. And you have to describe in detail the way in which these two Eids are celebrated, how to prepare themselves, on whom it is obligatory, who are the people exempted, and the way the prayers are performed. Okay, you have to identify these things in your answer. Okay, how do the two Eid bring Muslim community together? Okay, how these two Eids they bring the Muslim community together? Identify that these are the events of happiness. Okay, it creates develops brotherhood amongst them. Okay, they all perform their prayers together at one place, shoulder to shoulder, side by side. They share their happiness and joy with one another. This is how they come. All the family members they come. They are united. They prefer to spend these days along with their family members. क्वेश्चन नंबर वन इज वट देखो क्वेश्चन नंबर वन तो वही है ना जो अभी हमने पहले पूरा आंसर ईद का पूरा डिस्क्राइब किया दैट इज ऑल अबाउट ईद उल फितर एंड ईद उल अजहा ठीक है अभी तक जितनी भी मैंने बात की थी दैट वाज अबाउट क्वेश्चन नंबर वन दैट हाउ मुस्लिम दे सेलिब्रेट ईद उल फितर एंड ईद उल अजहा वही तो उसका आंसर था जिससे पहले मैंने सारी इतनी बड़ी तफसील से और इतनी डिटेल में जो बताया ठीक है दैट वाज द आंसर ऑफ दिस क्वेश्चन वी कैन मेंशन दैट सैक्रिफाइस इज ऑब्लिगेटरी ऑन दोज हु कैन अफोर्ड ठीक है मेंशन की जा सकती है पर्टिकुलरली यू हैव टू मेंशन के ईद का मेथड क्या है एंड हाउ ईद इज सेलिब्रेटेड ठीक है that's how you have to describe they celebrate Eid they particularly prepare themselves for the Eid prayer okay they wear the new clothes and they perform the Eid prayers and the other activities could also be identified which are usually practiced ठीक है जो जो practice होती है relatives से मिलना मेहंदी लगाना चूड़ियाँ ये सारी चीज़ें the taking and sharing of Eid these things also could be added but main answer should must be about the way Eid is celebrated by the Muslims okay the particularly the Eid prayer are performed वो उसके अंदर main answer है आपका ठीक है then we have a question about how, why are Muslims encouraged to pay सदक़ातुल फ़ितर I told you because of two reasons ठीक है आपने पहले तो बताना है सदक़ातुल फ़ितर है क्या तो first of all you have to identify कि सदक़ातुल फ़ितर is a charity it is a duty which is wajib which is obligatory on Muslims okay those who have the means to do it those who have the means uh, those who can spend it on the poor people okay so it is obligatory on those who can afford those who have that much means that they can help the poor and the needy so the head of the house okay whoever is the head of the house he is responsible to pay the required amount for other members of the family okay you can identify that it is approximately 1.75 kg of wheat okay from each member okay whatever may be the price of 1.75 kg of wheat okay that could be at least that could be given to a poor person okay this is how it is calculated so its payment why its payment is encouraged first of all to provide those who fasted with a means of making up for the errors during the month of Ramzan मैंने आपको बताया था ना कि रमज़ान में whatever mistake that we might have committed okay we might would have not able to perform and observe our fast as it was required by Allah Almighty so in order to overcome and make up those errors which we had done during the month of Ramzan okay so this charity would help us to make up ठीक है जो errors हमने किए थे उनकी तरफ से वो compensation हो जाए and the second reason that why we are encouraged so that it also provide means with the poor so that they can celebrate these festival also with the rest of the Muslim community so the poor and the needy would be helped and they will also be able to celebrate this happiness and this moment of joy along with the rest of the community so these are the two major reasons that why Muslims they have been encouraged to pay sadqatul fitr at the time of Eid al Fitr Okay, the last question is also very detailed one, and this is very well explained over here. Describe how and when the two Eids are celebrated, and give an account of the Eid prayer. Okay, so there are two main festivals of Islam. We know that Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. First is Eid al-Fitr. It is celebrated to mark the end of the Ramzan. And the second one, what is the second one? It is Eid al-Adha. It is the completion of the annual pilgrimage Hajj. And it is done in the remembrance of Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son. Ibrahim al Islam had a dream that he is sacrificing his son in the way of Allah. Okay, this dream came this vision came in his dream thrice, at least thrice. So, in order to fulfill his dream, he took along with his son, and they both agreed to fulfill the order of Allah Almighty. But Allah has blessed him with a sheep from the heaven, which he has sacrificed in the way of Allah. How do Muslims they perform and they celebrate this day? We can mention that Muslims they take bath, they dress up, okay, they wear the best or the new clothes at the start of their day, and they start the celebration and the festival with performance of prayer. So for the first thing which they do early in the morning is the Eid prayer. So Eid prayers are compulsory on those whom the Friday is obligatory. Okay, people who are exempted from Friday are also exempted from ईद प्रेयर. हमने वो चीज़ आइडेंटिफाई कर दी आंसर के अंदर शुरू में, जो मैंने आपको डिटेल में इसीलिए उस चीज़ को समझा दिया, सो दैट यू वुड हैव एन आइडिया कि हमारा आंसर कैसे बनेगा. So they do not replace the Fajr prayers, okay, and they can only be prayed in congregation. It cannot be performed individually, and that is why there is no qaza for this prayer. Okay, the time kya hai? And the time for it is from sunrise until noon. Okay, until noon, the midday. There is no azan, no iqamat for the Eid prayer. Okay, and Eid prayers are said in the mosque or in an open field musalla. You should mention that Prophet's practice was to perform these prayers in musalla, in the open ground. Okay, khutbah is read. Okay, khutbah is also the part of prayer, and khutbah is read in Eid prayers. There are two rakat, okay, to be performed, during which it is recommended to pronounce 6 extra takbir. So there are 6 extra takbir. 3 takbirs are pronounced after the opening takbir, the first takbir, okay, before the Quranic recitations of Surah Fatiha in the first rakat, while during the second rakat, the believer they pronounce the other 3 takbir after the Quranic recitation, matlab before going to ruku, before bowing. So worshippers they raise their hands during these takbir. Right, okay, when they pronounce these takbir, what they do, they raise their hand up to their ear and then they lower it down. Okay, it is highly recommended to proclaim the takbir on Eid from the time a believer sets off from home or for the Eid prayer. What is that? When Muslims they go for the performance of Eid prayer, what they do? They recite takbir. They are called takbirate tashriq. Tashriq. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Walillahil hamd. These takbirs are pronounced by them when they go for Eid prayer and while they return from the Eid prayer. Okay, from the time a believer sets off from home for the Eid prayer until reaching the destination where prayer is to be said. And also Sadaqatul Fitr is also given before Eid prayers to the needy. Okay, Sadaqatul Fitr is usually given only in Eid al-Fitr, not in Eid al-Adha. Okay, on Eid al-Adha, an animal is sacrificed in the remembrance of Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son for the sake of God. Okay, you can also mention, you can write about the festivities that take place on the day within families and the friends, okay, and the wider community. Okay, for example, families celebrate by having Eid meals together. Okay, they have their meals together, giving Eid and presents to the younger members of the family, visit friends and the relatives, having tikka and fun party barbecues with one another. These things could be identified. The way they celebrate this Eid and some practices amongst a local community or the Muslim community at large internationally could be identified. You can identify some of the foods which are usually cooked and which are usually shared with one another on this particular happiness, this day of happiness. Okay, so that's about Eid al-Fitr and the way the Eid al-Fitr is celebrated. Fine, that was about this topic that we had discussed. what is the importance of celebrating religious festivals? Why do we give Eid? This is a practice that we, in order to share our happiness, so that the young people would be happy, the young children would be happy, and they can have something to celebrate with it, and they can purchase and buy whatever they want to. So this is how we can identify that they are recommended to. Takbirate Tashriq, because these are the days. Why these are recited? Because these are the days in which Allah must be glorified. He must be. There is no specific reason, but these are the days to remember Allah Almighty, okay, and glorify Him. Although He must be glorified all the time, but since these are the days of happiness, these are the day when Allah has blessed the prophets with so many of his blessings, like Ibrahim al Islam has been blessed with so many of Allah's blessing from Allah Almighty. So Allah must be remembered in these specific days. These are the days of Hajj, okay, to glorify Him, to remember Him, and to raise His name and glorification, okay, to gain maximum of His blessings. So these are the specific days. Like some months are special. In the same way, some days in the of the year are also very much special. Okay, since these days, Allah has taken the oath of these days, that wal fajr, wal layalin ashr, these specific 9 nights. Okay, most of the scholars, they are of view that these 9 nights are of the first 10 days of Zilhajj. Okay, so these are the important days of the year, okay, so in which, so that is why in these days, so Allah must be glorified and His name must be raised and fine. So Islam, why Islam has recommended and why we have been recommended, and what is the importance of celebrating the religious festivals? Okay, give reasons to support your answer, that why we should celebrate and what is the importance of celebrating these festivals, so that we can share our happiness with one another. Okay, it will bring unity and brotherhood. Okay, to it helps unite the community, and families get together will help them, will help to develop their strong bond between one another. Okay, in the same way, several religious practices and several religious things are done, so which promotes brotherhood and equality amongst the Muslims, and the sacrificial animals meat are also distributed in the community, so it promotes the goodwill in the society. These things that you need to mention in your answer, that why it is important to celebrate these religious festivals with full zeal, with full zest, and with enthusiasm, so that um, because these are the symbols, these are the signs, okay, these are the specific days for the Muslims that must be celebrated with great joy and happiness and with full devotion. Okay, Muslims must show and express their gratitude to Allah Almighty for providing them with such an opportunity to celebrate their happiness and their festivity from Allah Almighty. So that was about the way Eid al-Fitr and these festivals are celebrated. So this is a part of our syllabus that we had discussed in detail, that congregational prayers both on Friday and Eid. So we had already talked about the Friday prayer, and now we had also discussed the importance of these festival prayers, the Eid prayers for the Muslims.